Starting with Ezra Hashem Siman Ayin base. So we're talking about the kasha that within Elef Shanim, or according to some shittas it's 400 or 403, there's a certain amount of time that Mashiach can't come. And then after that, it depends on Shuvah. So the question was, the Chidah asked, there's certain stories in the Gemara that sound like in the time of the Gemara he could have already come if there would have been Shuvah. Like Rav said, Kol Kitzim, Ein David Makav El Shuvah. And Rabbi Shubin Levi heard from Mashiach that he's coming whenever B'Koilo Yishma'u. So he says like this: V'hinei dasa tikunim, tikun lamed. This tikunei zoyar that the Reb Chaim Vital brought down. She'al zem yisadim called divrei Reb Chaim Vital zal. That's what his whole words are based on. Shebe hakdama hanal. They're in this hakdama Sefer Eitz Chaim. Shehiflig ba'avodas Hashem yisborach shelo yalmanas lekabel pras. Yeah, the Reb Chaim Vital talks about avodas Hashem without getting a reward, without hoping for a reward. Ela me'ahavas Hashem levad, only doing it out of love. V'shuv achar kach pirish bazeh hakasiv. And Reb Chaim Vital said, based on that, that's pshat in the pasuk. Hishbati eschem. The Tikunei Zohar really says this is pshat in the pasuk. Hishbati eschem im ta'iru ad shetechbats, until we serve out of love. Techbats means chefetz, ahava. Hakavana shetiyah ho'avoida mei chefetz. The avoida should be out of love, the ratzon alev, and the desire of the heart, and loy b'shvil pras, not for reward. Upirish oid Rabbi Chaim Vital zal sham the lashon ad shetechbats hu keben ho'ovid es aviv. Now this is a different shot. I don't know what the exact difference is. He says that ad shetechbats means until we're on the madrega of a son who serves his father.
A son doesn't serve his father for reward. What do you mean?
I know, so it's the same thing then. What's the difference between this shot and the
comparison? It's a comparison, I guess.
I don't know.
Maybe you can compare it because a son doesn't. You saw like he just wants to leave his father.
Vayoel b'chol paltrin delays going in the whole palace. With a chol genizin delay in all the hidden places. V'loy ke'eved ho'eved almanas lekabel pras. Not like a slave who does it to get the reward. U'bevadai she'ein makom li'istapek sha'shvua shehuzeru Yisrael. Okay, so now what shvua was the Tikunei Zohar referring to here? So he says it can't be. There's no way to have any stakes about the question that the shvua shehuzeru Yisrael shaloi lidchot kisakates, that our shvua that we have not to push for the end. It should be dependent on how we serve Hashem. Without any ulterior motive. Nobody could tell that. Only Hashem who could see into the people's hearts. There's no way to be mashbiya people to do something based on their knowledge of other people's minds. So this is his raya that the Tikunei Zohar can't be referring to our shvua. You hear? Because if it's referring to our shvua, then what's it saying? It's saying don't go and make a Zionist movement. You know why? Because Yidden didn't do tshuva yet. If you didn't do tshuva me'ahava, go ahead.
Yeah, how can you tell?
Conquer Eretz Yisrael.
How can you tell you whether
How can you tell? Right. Only Hashem knows whether we did tshuva me'ahava. So this is in addition to in Siman Ayin, when he first brought this down, there was a whole paragraph starting with Hine. That paragraph, the Rebbe said that halachas don't have zman. Halachas that are on us, there's no such thing as a halach in the Torah that we can just go on our own and say, oh, it's only until Elef Shanim.
In fact, the Gemara never even said so.
Right. But you can't say it, if the Gemara doesn't say it, we don't have a Messiah, Torah Shabbat Peh or something, you can't just say on your own that a halach is only Negeya for a certain number of years. Halacha doesn't change. The Torah doesn't change.
Yeah. But as I argue, it's only a guy that's argument. It's a guy that but even the guy doesn't change.
It's halacha.
Right. But
especially this Gemara is not a Galata because it talks about real halachas. That Reb Zeira wasn't allowed to go there to Israel according to Rabbi Yehuda, and he himself he's allowed to. Kitzer. So in Siman Ayin he said the halacha doesn't have his mom. Now here he's saying a different argument. He's saying that even if you would tie, okay, maybe halacha has his man, but here, how could the halacha be tali in something that we will do? In other words, he's saying until Elef Shanim you can't make a Zionist movement. Afterwards you could. Okay, but until Elef Shanim you can't, unless what? Unless you do tshuva out of love. How are you going to tell if the Jewish people did tshuva out of love? How are you going to tell? Okay. Now the next paragraph he's going to strengthen this more. He's going to explain more that halacha can't be, that Bezdin has to do, Mises Bezdin, things that Bezdin takes into their own hands can't depend on their knowledge, their reading minds.
Of course, you need Smitha for that anyhow, to do Mises Bezdin.
Yeah, but he's saying even the time when they did it, they didn't do it based on the internal attitude of the person. Take a look. With the Gemara Malkus Daf Yud Gimel on the base, the Chayve Krisis im Ostu Tshuva Bezdin Shal Ma'ala Moichlin Lahem. Chayve Mises Bezdin im Ostu Tshuva Ein Bezdin Shal Mata Moichlin Lahem. He says that there's a din of Machlokes Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Kiva, and a third time, I think Rabbi Yitzchak. The question is, do people who get Misa get Malchus too? Every lav in the Torah gets Malchus. So if someone does a lav that's Chayav Misa, like Eish or like Shabbos, does he get Malchus too? So Rabbi Shmuel holds yes, gets Malchus. Malchus and Misa together. And Rabbi Kiva says no, doesn't, because you can't give a person two punishments. Yeah. But he says when a person does a Chayav Krisis, like a Choisoi, he gets Malchus and he gets Kares. Why? What's the difference? Rabbi Kiva says, Krisis is also a type of Misa B'dei Shemayim. You can't give a person two punishments. The answer is, Rabbi Kiva says that if Chayve Krisis would do tshuva, then Hashem would be moichel them. They'd lose their Kares. So they're not really getting two punishments. They're getting only one punishment. That's the Malchus. And the Krisis is a removable punishment. But Chayve Mises Bezdin, that the Bezdin Shal Mata, the physical human beings of Bezdin, have to give him the punishment, and they can't let him off the hook if he does tshuva. Okay? So you could have a guy who did a Chiyav Misa, and he did tshuva, and he fasted, and he davened for years, and went through Yom Kippur. Doesn't help. Gets Misa. Okay? The Sifrei Simchas HaRegel Al Haggadah, the Kedah says, Belimit Gimel, that what's the reason for this? Why taka? Why should Bezdin kill somebody if they did tshuva? They're tzaddik now. Tshuva helps, right? He says that even though we see he's afflicting himself and he's sitting there and fasting, his teeth are turning black from all the fasts. Since the main tshuva is not really the fast, it's the machshava, it's the thoughts in the heart. Right? It could be that on the outside he looks like he's being Baal Tshuva, but really inside he's not really doing it. He doesn't really have any regrets. That's why we give him the oynish, Malchus or Misa, whatever it is. Only Hashem knows what's in his mind. Who went up to Shemaim to see if this guy really meant it lishma. That's why it doesn't help, because we can't see. Again, you see this point that he's making, that we don't act on mind reading. So how could we act? How could these Zionists say that we would go and go conquer Eretz Israel, because we know that everyone did tshuva me'ahava? How do we know? How
can't tell. Nobody could tell.
Ve'im kain mevur b'dvarav. We see from the Chidah shebavadai lafia mida hayam moil tshuva, that the etzem tshuva would have helped. L'poitre me'achiv misa. It's not pshat that when someone's chayav misa nothing helps. No. Ein davar hoim b'nei tshuva. Tshuva helps for everything. Or Malchus. But you can't give that over to the human court. Okay. Now we get to this very interesting tshuva, Noida B'Yehuda. He's talking about a person who is over a big aveira there, and he's giving him a derech tshuva. He's teaching him how to do it, and he tells him like this. He says, "Be'etzem, you're telling me this guy, the person who did the aveira, was a very weak person. He can't be soivel too many fasts." So the Rabbi says, don't worry so much about the fast. The fast is not the main thing, because the main thing is what's in the heart. And he brings a raya. He says, if the main thing would be the fasts, and if tshuva would require fasting and pining in yourself and sitting in the snow and whatever, really painful things, then what would happen? It would happen that we could give a person off Mises Bezdin. He says like this, look inside. That why doesn't tshuva help to get off Mises Bezdin? That if you say that tshuva helps to get off Misa, then everybody's going to do it. Bezdin's going to say, okay, you're chayav Misa. And the guy's going to say, okay, I did tshuva. Tasi avisi b'shati. In 1 second, tshuva helps, right? The Noida Yehuda proves from this that these things, fasting and self-affliction, they're not part of tshuva min Torah. You don't have to do them to have tshuva. Because if you would have to do them, then we wouldn't say batel kol dina mises bezdin. We wouldn't say that it's so easy to get off the hook. We'd say bezdin will tell the guy, look, you chayav misa, right? You clap al chet for 1 minute and you say I'm doing tshuva, doesn't help. Chayav misa. But what if the guy Taka spent a few years rolling in the snow and fasting and going in the mikveh? Then maybe in a chanami, right? Because if he did the sigufim, then we see that he did it. He can't fool us. He says, "Elamai must be those things aren't necessary." Okay, Elas farasai. Second. Tzarech liyos, I'm up to there, right? Tzarech liyos, tzarech loimer. We have to say gam kain that the Noida Yehuda also held the soiver the mitzad din, mitzad mida hayam moil tshuva. The tshuva would have helped. Elas she'ef shalim zel bezdin shalmata. We can't give it over to bezdin shalmata. So tshuva, just standing there for 1 minute and doing tshuva would have helped, but you can't give it over to bezdin shalmata.
But it does.
Elas farasai. The difference between the Noida Yehuda and the chida is like this: the avsha bezdin shalmata. Even though it's true that the Bezdin Shalmata can't know what's in his heart, so like the Chidah said, but he says that wouldn't be enough of a reason to give him the death penalty, because it's still a suffix. The guy might be doing tshuva shleima, you don't know, so don't give him misa. So that's why the Noida Yehuda had to say that the reason why you don't give him misa, why you give him misa is the imkain batel kol misas bezdin, kol dina misas bezdin. If you're going to say that, then nobody will ever get misa. Tanesim, but Mashenkin, if you would have said that fasting is part of tshuva, then he would have said, "V'tanesim v'sigufim herich loymar." Noida Yehuda says at length there, "The yesh sigufim she'iyav shaloymar b'hem yerumi kamarim." That you can't say like the Chidah. The Chidah says that it might look like he's doing tshuva, but he's not really. Noida Yehuda doesn't agree with that. He says if you see the guy doing certain types of self-affliction and asceticism, that there's no way to fake it. He says, "Yesh sigufim she'iyav shaloymar b'hem yerumi kamarim. Uv'chai gavna havi leila miftar." Now, what are those ways? Take a look in the Noida Yehuda. I think it's page 11 in the sheets. Siman hey. This paragraph here, starting with Ella, the second column on the page, and he says. He says like this: why shouldn't tshuva help lahatzim mises bezdin? Still, that won't stop us from giving misa to most people. Why did Nech say none? Let's take a look. If he did it according to the sin that he committed, and he balanced it out with the affliction. There's some things that you can't fake. To strip naked and sit down in front of a beehive. The Gilgal Shelig, or to take off your clothes and roll in the snow. It's mentioned. These things are brought down in Sifrei Tshuva.
But you're not even do al pilacha, because you're not fit yourself.
Okay, I don't know. So he says that these things are mentioned, and if someone did that tshuva in a chanami, they'll get off bezdin. Elamai, it must be that those things don't really matter. You don't really need to do those things to do tshuva. Ve'ilu ha'yasoiver. If the Noida Yehuda would have held the F Shaloimer Shekachi Amida, that we could say that no, that basically Sha'afim Ma'as Tshuva, even if he did tshuva, it doesn't help. Even Ma'as Tshuva be'emes, Eino Miftar Me'achi of Misa or Malchus, then it doesn't help to get off your death penalty. Then Loi Haya Loi Tzarech Loimar Hatam De'im Kein Batul Kol Mises Bezdin. He wouldn't have had to say this thing that all the Mises Bezdin will be batul. He could have just said straight away that tshuva doesn't help. He wouldn't have had his raya that the affliction is not necessary. He could have just said, yeah, it's necessary, but you can't do tshuva on Chiv Misa. Doesn't help. We don't have to come on to any other reasons. It must be that both the Chidah and the Noid Yehuda agree she'ein l'chadav v'she'omri b'fnei tshuva. There's nothing that stops tshuva. U'mitzad hamidah havi miftar b'at tshuva. That really he should have been parted from the death penalty. V'lachein moyel v'misa b'dei shemayim. That's taka why it helps when a person's chayav kares or misa b'dei shemayim. It helps to do tshuva. Ki hamishpalel kim hu, because Hashem is the one who sees the heart. He knows how to do it. Ach b'mishpat bezin shamata ef shaladim b'masha tali b'nekudas halev. But as far as bezin is concerned, they can't paskin based on the heart. The Chidah soiver she'af b'sigufim ko'elu. No, what's the machlekes, the Chidah and the Yehuda? The machlekes is the Chidah holds that even in really strong affliction, shalafiru uisayin, that it looks to the outside like he's really doing it lishma. Ef shashi yeboyarm, there can't be any faking it. Gam bazeh ef shaleid and the kudas halev. The Chidah says you still can't know what's in his heart. Sheyef shaliv ne'adam lahavkin zeh. Zula sayodeh machshavas, that people can't tell what's in a person's heart. Only Hashem could. Yodeh machshavas bavad hu v'lo yacher. Mashenkin the Noid Yehuda says no, you could tell. But Betzim, they both agree that tshuva helps, and the pshat is that Bezdin doesn't look at the tshuva. Gam tzorach loimer shesoiver to kivan sheyef shel Bezdin shel mata leida bazeh, that the Chidah holds that since Bezdin Shalmata can't know what's in his heart, you don't have the taina. The Noid Yehuda asked on the Chidah, it's a suffix at least, don't kill him, kasafik. The answer is it wasn't given into their hands even to make it a suffix. Because since they don't have any idea about these things, Hashem just said, don't worry about it at all. Okay? Okay, Uber Gemara Yevon Staf Chaf Beis, Lo Matza Davar Shein Moel Tshuva, El Balo Erva, the Holy the Mamzer. Now the Gemara there says, what's Uvas Lo Yuchal Liskoin? What's a broken thing that you can't fix? Zeh Balo Erva, someone who has relations with an Erva and has a child with her, and it's a Mamzer. Okay? Now, no matter what he does, he can never change what he did. Mamzer is in the world. Kivin Shah Mamzer Kaim. So, what does he want to show from this? That the Gemara had no other case of a davar she'ef shel sakin. There's no other case where you can't fix what you did, except for this case. So why not? Why don't you say, let's say a person was mechal Shabbos, he's chayav mises bezdin, and he can't fix what he did, he can't do tshuva.
Yeah.
Right?
What's the answer?
The answer is, he could do tshuva. The answer is, he could do tshuva. Just bezdin doesn't kill him. Bezdin kills him because bezdin can't see the tshuva in his heart, but the etzim, the tshuva does help. Okay? Uve Toisvis Sham, Dibra Mastel Kishasa, Chivish Oy. Toisvis also says even more there. He says, Divamakum Shemischayev Chas V'Shalom Nidui. Toisvis has a kasha there that I think Toisvis asks that it says somewhere else in Shas, in Sanhedrin, it says that if a son is like the Shliach Bezdin, let's say a guy has a job, he's the one who gives the Malkus for people who are Chayav Malkus. Yeah. And Bezdin wants, now his father is coming into Bezdin to get Malkus. So the Gemara says he can't be the Shliach to hit his own father.
He can't even be his judge or any relative.
Can't be a judge, but let's say he's not the judge. The judge is already passing his father's Chayav Malkus. So they can't give this son the job of beating his father. But here Tosfos has a problem that why should this son not be allowed to give the Malkus to his father? His father's a Rasha now. So it's Eino Isa Maisa Amcha. So the lav doesn't apply of Maka Aviv Imoy. So he says in the Chanami here we're talking when the father did tshuva. He did the Aveira, he's Chayav Malkus, then he did tshuva afterwards. Still Chayav Malkus, but the son can't be the one to do it. So now this father did tshuva and the father became a tzaddik again. So he's still Chayav Malkus, but the son can't be the one to do it. Then Tosfos says, it also says there that if the son has to give the nidui. Let's say they have Bezdin gives nidui to people sometimes.
What's nidui?
Nidui is like a cherem. They put a cherem on a person, a curse.
Yeah.
So the person's not allowed to curse his father. So let's say the father is the one who's getting the curse. So the son can't be the one to deliver it. So the Gemara says, Tosfos says, what about the father's a Rasha now? You can curse him. The answer is, Asa tshuva, he did tshuva. So Dr. Tosfos, from here we see that even when a person did tshuva, he still has to get that curse. It doesn't go off. He says, even tshuva doesn't take off the nidui. But even the Sanhedrin doesn't have the right to paskin based on the heart. that his great grandfather Yismach Moshe says in Parashat Shmini, "Bedin im kivrei tzadikim metamin." That there's this question that tzadikim b'misasim kruyim chaim. You know, the Gemara in Brachos that a tzaddik, when he's dead, he's considered alive. So if he's alive, then he should be allowed to walk on his kever and not become tzaddik.
But as we passing that we can't really tell who was a tzaddik.
So that's exactly what he's going to say.
There was a time it was possible, like by Yirmiyahu and Rabbi, but it was just like a few exceptional cases.
Well, I think even the Avos, the Gemara says that their kever is matame. You know, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Anyway, Vizel Shoinai, the Me'etzem. This is Yismach Moshe talking now. The Me'etzem Adin Roy Liyoy Tzadikim Lo Yitamu. It really should have been that tzadikim shouldn't be matame. Ki ein tuma lahem. They have no tuma. Uv'misasa nikru chaim. That when they're dead, they're considered alive. Ach loy nitna lanu lihisnaik. It wasn't given over to us to act on this, right? But then, not to delve, but to act based on this this knowledge. Of course, who can
delve into what he really had in mind?
Right. In other words, who can know whether this person is a tzaddik gomer or not? The pasuk says Hashem is the one who can tell what's in the heart. A person can only see with his eyes. We don't act on this. Even if we know that this person was a tzaddik, even if sometimes we would know, right? Sometimes we can't tell. You could have a tzaddik nister, can't tell if he's a tzaddik. But even if someone is for sure a tzaddik, you still can't do it because we don't want to make any distinctions here. You don't want to embarrass anybody. We have no way to tell. The Gemara in Brachos Chav Ches, it says when Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was nifter, he said Panu Kalim.
Right before he was nifter.
Right before he said Panu Kalim mipnei atuma. Get the Kalim out of the house because I'm about to die and they're going to become tamei. Vehachinu kisei lechizkiya melech Yehuda. Bring a chair for Chizkiya melech Yehuda sheratza bozeh. Yeah, that he's coming to greet me. And when I go out of the world, so he says Shirat.
Why Chizkiya Melech? Why about David Melech?
Why Davka Chizkiya?
Chizkiya lots is worthy of being Mashiach.
So what does that do with Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai? I think that Chizkiya.
Why would Chizkiya if he lots is worthy of being Mashiach?
Chizkiya was the one who was Machzir Yisrael b'tshuva. He made everybody learn Torah. Maybe Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai also brought back Torah after the Churban. So he said, bring a chair for him. Sheratza bozeh. Dr. Yismach Moshe that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was trying to teach us something here. Sheratza bozeh l'lami l'talmidav de'afsha oz b'shas misa. Even though, just as he was dying, nisbara loy shehu tzaddik gomer, he realized that he was a tzaddik gomer ve'ein adam mishaker b'shas misa, and we're not chosh that he's lying about it. So he said, bring a chair for Chizkiya. Obviously, he's a tzaddik. Mikol makom. He's here malatuma. He still said, don't, get the kelim out of the house because I'm still matame. Loy malach da'af benisbara loy nitchan amud Torah al zeh. Even if it's known for sure that the person is a tzaddik, we don't base the Torah on this. The loy b'shamayim here. The Torah is not in shamayim, so even if you know something, you don't act on it. Uve'eretz hayediyah. Down here in this world, uve'aretz in this world, hayediyah nederes bazeh. We don't have much knowledge of this. Ruba de Ruba, in most cases. Okay, that Torah hishva midasel. That's why the Torah made all cases the same. Ad kan l'shoinai. That's the Yismach Moshe. Yuyin sham sheherich. V'alkoponim zev vada l'chol adeis. But everyone agrees, shaloi nimsa lebezin shel mata, that bezin shel mata can't know, later kol pnimius levav shalan she'ador, to know if the whole generation is doing tshuva. Im avodasim la'Hashem yisparach hi me'ahava bilti la'Hashem levado. Even if they see them doing tshuva, they see everybody's keeping the Torah and everything, being very firm, doesn't help because you can't tell what's in their heart. You can't tell if they're doing it, l'shem shemaim, or they're doing it for some ulterior motive. They're doing it for reward from Hashem, which is also considered a little bit not lishma. For least lois be a diazu, and we can't make something dependent on this idea. The shvua chamura she'amar aleh HaKadosh Baruch Hu ani matir es b'sarchem. This severe oath that Hashem said that the oynish is such a big oynish, ani matir es b'sarchem. Okay, so that can't be pshat. So Elamai, what's he going on? He's going on Hashem's oath that he took to himself not to bring the geula before a certain time. Avav gam b'zeh Even without this raya, ein sham b'tikunim. There's no in this tikkun zohar shum remez or remiza me'ashvua shal Yisrael b'dechikas hakes. It doesn't say anything there about the shvua that's on the Jewish people. The whole thing is talking about Hashem shvua shegazar al galus, that He made the gzeres galus. He can end it early if He sees that everyone's doing avodah me'ahava. Okay. Okay, now you're going to explain how does it get into the pasuk. The pasuk, Lamaisa, that pasuk is talking about the shvua on Klal Yisrael. We're talking here about that the pasuk says Hishbati eschem. I was mashpia you. Okay, so the problem is I was mashpia you, the Jewish people. So how could you say that it's going on Hashem's shvua? So he says that there's one of the shvuos is going on the goyim. That it's fair to put that into the pasuk because the pasuk says, "I made you B'nai Yerushalayim swear." That the answer is that's how we darshan things. Sometimes we darshan things from a pasuk that are not the pasuk shot. A lot of times Chazal learn out from drashes, even though it goes against the pasuk shot. Both are true. The das hatikunim hu. So this tikkun zohar holds that one of the oaths in Shir Shirim, and we know that there's 6 of them, right? Because there's 6 psukim, and really there are 4 psukim, and if you multiply the 3 times 2, you get 6, and you add on the 1, you get 7. So there's really a lot of shvuos you could fit in there, and one of them, halalu al shvuas shel Kodesh Baruch Hu. One of them is going on Kodesh Baruch Hu. Shegazer al galus, that he made the gzera shelo yoyel shumis oirus legula, that no tshuva should help ad shiyah mechefetz alev, unless it's tshuva me'ahava. Le'avas Hashem yisbarach b'li shum pniyah shel kabbalas pras. The zeb bir Reb Chaim Vital zal. That's where Reb Chaim Vital explains Maamar yishbati eschem shahaisa shvua hagadola le'eloikim. The shvua to Hashem was shelo yoyel sagula. The his oirus of the Yidden, that the Jews should not arouse the gula, should not that his oirus of tshuva should not help in Shemayim until the love that they have is going to be beratzon toiv. It's going to be a avodah me'ahava. Kamash kosav techbats uve'ashvus the koy al Yisrael. Mashen came the oaths that go on the Jewish people, that they shouldn't force the end. Yesh pir shacher b'lashon techbats. Then techbats means something else. It doesn't mean avodah me'ahava. It means until the midas hadin wants it. Remember the medrash? The medrash says in the Shir Shirim, it says ad techbats midas hadin ani mevia b'koyle koylos. K'moshe v'esi l'mayla midivrei chazal. Oyster shvua the koyal Kodesh Baruch Hu, that shvua that kunim darshans on Hashem l'fidas tikunim appears shu kanal. The pshat in Aj techbats is until there is tshuva me'ahava. V'hakad isa v'hakad isa. Okay, so we're holding Be'ez Hashem in the middle of Ayin Beis. We're by the paragraph starting V'hinei zeh, on page Pei Ches, on the paragraph V'hinei zeh. Now, in the middle of talking about the raya that the Sionim brought from the Reb Chaim Vital, it says that there's a shvua, Hagdoil Elokim quotes the shvua from Shir Shirim, and he says that it's that the Golus won't end until the Yidden do tshuva me'ahava, and then Reb Chaim Vital adds on with another zohar somewhere else that is only
for the first 1,000 years.
For the first 1,000 years, and after that, it could end. So they understood that it meant the shvua that's on Klal Yisrael, that we can't go out of Galus early. But the Rabbi proved until now, this Siman, that it can't be that, because this idea that we have to do tshuva b'ahava, it can't be that our shvua, our iser, to go up from Galus becomes mutter when we do tshuva b'ahava, because how are we supposed to know and look into everybody's minds and know whether they did tshuva me'ahava. The Torah can't be based on other people's thoughts. Okay, so Elamai, what is Reb Chaim Vital talking about? He's talking about a medrash, which is really it's a Zohar. It's called the Tikkun Zohar. A certain section of the Zohar called the Tikkun Zohar. And
was it written by Yirmiyahu or by somebody else?
Well, I don't know exactly who wrote it, when it was compiled, but it has members of Tanoim and Amoraim in it. And anyway, so this Tikkun Zohar mentions the Shevuos, and it's not going on the Shevuos that the Gemara in Ksubas mentions, that it's a Shevuos on Klal Yisrael. It's going on a different Shevuos. It's going on the Shevuos of Hashem. V'hinei zeh vadai she'af ha'ovid Hashem yisborach amanas dekabel pras me'akadosh baruch hu havit tzadik gomer.
So the Gemara was shut openly.
Right, so he's going to explain now why Reb Chaim Vital was bothered that he had to bring in the thing about 1,000 years. Why couldn't he just leave it at that? That the Shevuos of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to end the Golus, is totally when we do Tshuva Me'ahava. Whenever we do Tshuva, whenever it might be, in 2,000-3,000 years, doesn't matter how long it takes, and that's when the Golus will end. Why couldn't he say that? The answer is because even if someone is Oiv Hashem Yisbarach Almanas the Kabel Pras, he's not Me'ahava. He's doing it in order to get reward. He's still not such a bad guy. He's a Tzaddik Gomer, right? He's not the highest mile. I mean, he could have been to a higher mile. No exactly. Bad being done. As long as he doesn't have in mind to get pras from people. If he wants to get rewarded by people with honors and money, then that's taka lo madrega.
But harav. I mean, don't shurish amanas this.
Right.
But I didn't say amanas for others.
Right. So amanas the kala pras from Hashem is not a lo madrega. He says Elam HaKadosh Baruch Hu bilvad shezehi emuna gedola b'HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If you believe Hashem is going to give you a reward, and you're doing avodas Hashem to get that reward, that's a high madrega.
If somebody wants kavod, then he's not food.
V'kasher amru ha'omer sel azu l'tzedakah. Just like the Chazal say that if someone says, I'm going to give this money to tzedakah, I'm not shichya b'ni, and I'm on condition, whatever I want, that Hashem in reward for this money I'm giving to tzedakah, I want him to make my son healthy. Harei zet tzaddik gomer. He's a complete tzaddik. And the Gemara explains there, because he doesn't really mean a t'nai. He doesn't mean to take back what he does if chas v'shalom his son doesn't get well. He's just doing it because he wants that schar. If he doesn't get the schar, all right, but he still wants the mitzvah. So he says, "V'hinei herich bazeh hatois v'syantiv b'masechta avos." The tois v'syantiv in avos goes on about this at length, about amanas the kabel pras, probably at the beginning over there. The Tois V'Syantiv, who is a Talmud of the Maharal, brings him down and he says, "Shegam ho'eved amanas the kabel pras havet tzaddik gomer. Ela shehamayla hayoyser gedola he avoid ho'eved me'ahava bilvad." It's only a higher madrega. V'im kain. You can't say that if we're all Mekayim the Torah, just not Me'ava, then the Gula is not going to come. You can't say that because just that people have in mind that the rewards mentioned in the Torah should come true. That these rewards were promised by Hashem. That's called being over Hashem in order to get the reward. You can't say that there should be a chi of galus, a punishment for this. Everyone would be a tzaddik gomer. Just they wouldn't be on the highest level. So why shouldn't we get a gula for that? Yeah? So this was bothering Reb Chaim Vital. That's why he couldn't learn that it just goes on forever like this until we do Tshuva Me'ahava. So we all came beer Reb Chaim Vital zal shezekoy alo elaf shanim rishonim. But that's only the first 1,000 years. Shahaisa shvua sha'agolis muchrach machmas avoin hakadum. That for that, those first 1,000 years, there was a shvua. Hashem swore that the Golos would last 1,000 years because of the previous sins that we committed during the Beis Hamikdash times, and that can't be changed unless we do tshuva me'ava. V'afal pichein ilu haya hador b'madrega zu shekulam yavdus Hashem yisbarach me'ava bilvad haya mevat l'magzera. But if we would have been on the madrega to do it, then to be over me'ava, then it would have been mevat l'magzera. V'hevi zeh Reb Chaim Vital zal laharos goydel ma'alos ha'ovid es Hashem yisbarach me'ava b'li shum pniyah. He's trying to show how great it is to serve Hashem without any ulterior motives. That there is a big difference. That lishma could be mevatel l'gzeres hagalus, and shaloi lishma can't be mevatel it. It's just enough to get the gula after the galus ends. V'she'avoida lishma yesh koach li'iskarvus ha'geula. Okay, Lil Moed Mizel Lis Ametz Lis Rachik Mipnias Ba'avodas Hashem Yisbarach. And the lesson for us here is to stay away from serving Hashem for side reasons. V'al Kopanim Zeb Bar B'li Shum Safik She'enu Medaber Me'ashvua Shal Yisrael. In any case, the shvua that he's talking about is not the shvua that goes on the Jewish people. Ukamash Koser Reb Chaim Vital Zal Omar Oid B'Medrash Hanal. The beginning of the paragraph was that Medrash says, that Tikkunei Zohar says. And then it continues with discussion of that Tikkunei Zohar, not the Gemara Ksubos. Uvegin da hishpati. That's the lashon of Tikkunei Zohar. So diktek loymar, he goes out of his way to say that shedvar soivim rakal oimer b'medrash hanal. He's going only on what it says in that medrash. The Maya Mishvuos Shel Kodesh Baruch Hu. Avaloi mashem avur b'mekoyim sacherim. He's not going on what it says in other places, the Gemara Ksubos and the Medrash Rabbah. B'cham madrashos pashvuos shal Yisrael. The shvuos there are incumbent on the Jewish people. Because that shvuah has no limit in time. It's like I said before, that Isurim in the Torah go for all times.